I'm Lisa Byrne.
And I'm Lori Gambacorda, and we are with E.P.I.C, Empowering People, Inspiring Community. And today on our session of E.P.I.C Experts Interviews, we are happy to welcome Karen Lovelien of Cellular Clarity. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us today. We appreciate you joining us. And can you let everyone know a little bit about your business?
Yeah, what it's about. Maybe a minute just on how it evolved. I mean, I was in corporate banking, and I had a sudden situation that happened in my life where I lost everything I knew my life to be. I realized it when I was at a weekend workshop, and I had to get up and say what I got out of the workshop, and I stood there with my hands up in the air, and I was looking at my hands because I didn't know what I was going to say. And I looked at this hand, and this hand opened, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's my life at home. And I already asked for a divorce. But then I looked over here, and this was who I was at work. And I went, looked at that, and my hands went like that. And it was like, oh my God, that wasn't me either. And I gasped. And I said, I don't know who I am. And so that was my turning point in my life. That actually got me to discover me. And from that point, it was 6 weeks later, I was fired because I started doing things different at work, and just being more in alignment with more of who I was. And then I went home when I was fired. I went home and I just collapsed. I collapsed on the floor, and I went into a prayer. God, show me, teach me, use me. And I stayed in that prayer for weeks. And what happened was the veil to all dimensions lifted. And so with that, things started, spirit started coming to me in many different forms. And the first message I got was become ease, E.A.S.E. And so I said, I don't know how. And the message came, you don't have to know how to do anything. Simply choose it and surrender. And so that's been my life, is making choices and surrendering, choices and surrendering. And in that, I've just been guided. It started when the veil lifted, spirits coming from the other side. And I said, what do I do with them? The answer was help them with their healing. So I would say yes, I don't know how, and again, yes. And then I was being shown. So I've been taught for 30 years, working on myself and working on others. And so that's the background, just to get a quick background of how it started. And so I've been doing that. And so currently what it looks like private sessions, it looks like group sessions, and I'm getting much more guidance to do more and more group sessions, because it started with hands-on energy work, healing, frequency work. But as I was taught and evolved all these different modalities through spirit, I haven't taken classes other than Reiki. I did take Reiki. I was in Reiki master early on, which opened the channels for me. And then it just evolved. And then it turned into sound frequencies. And then it turned into light frequencies. So in the last several years, I've been taught which sounds do what function. And they come automatically through me. And I used to run and get my pipe and the piano to try to figure out if they'd say, this is A, and I'd go, show me. And I got, it was A. So I was learning what each of the pitches do. And what I was told is they're actually vibrating at a much higher octaves much higher, but inflections come through my voice, and the tones do the work. And so I've just learned how to work with that, not only with individuals, to help them. It's really working on the autonomic nervous system, the fight and flight nervous system. And it's bringing it back in balance and clearing the stuff underneath that no longer serves and is actually getting in your way, which could be maybe energy cords or other dimensional energies, or we hold stories, lies, perceptions in our body. And I work with people to help them release it. So while I'm doing that, I'm also teaching people energetic practices that they can work on themselves, frequency practices, working with their heart. Their heart is so intelligent. And it's everyone can do it. So I teach them how to continue to grow. So that's really a nugget of what my personal work is in cellular clarity. And then, you know, we do other things. I work with Fred, my husband, and we do tours, sacred tours to mystical tours to sacred sites, I should say. And so that's something we do. We've done Nepal, we've done Peru, Bolivia, and Egypt, and now our next tour is Malta and Sicily, and that's going to be in October 2022. We figure by then it'll probably be okay.
We can only hope. That's a lot. That's a big intro. So maybe for some people who don't really understand the nature of frequency and vibration, maybe you could kind of simplify it for the folks who might be very, very new to this kind of work. Okay. I mean, there's I think a certain group of people that, you know, they already get it and they understand frequency and vibration, but what would you say to somebody who's kind of like a true beginner, and explain it to them in a more simplified way?
Well, usually the people that come to me have something up. They've lost a loved one, or they've got, getting a divorce, or they are, there's something going on in their life. And so the way I describe it to them, if they're not familiar with it, and what's interesting is the words come through me sometimes for people when I don't even know where they are, but my words change depending on who I'm talking to and how I explain things. But the reality is we come into this world as light, and over lifetimes or over our lifetime here, we come in and we're these light beings, and we come into families, and the families perhaps have patterns where there's a lot of judgment, or a lot of abuse, or a lot of abandonment, whatever the family pattern is. As young children, we take it on. We take on that family pattern. And when we experience it as light beings and being very young, very often we pull back and we shut down on our feminine side, often going into hiding. And we lose access to that part of that person. And what happens is when you work with frequencies, you're actually realigning and opening up to that little one inside. And I actually work with them to actually they're asking that part of themselves to come out to talk. I get ages too of when it went in hiding and why it went in hiding. So it makes sense to people because they're going, yeah, that's exactly what that was when my grandma died, or that was when, it all makes sense when they start working. Most people that come to me come because they've been recommended. So they've talked to someone that's already gone through it too. And so I support them in removing energy cords, bringing these little ones back, growing them up to be their age so they have the qualities that these brought in. Because if you grow up with a lot of judgment, you think that love comes with judgment. And you grow up and you're attracting someone that's got judgment because that's love, right? So it's the unlearning and the reprogramming the cells. Frequency actually reprogram the cells, different frequencies. Some are actually removing the old stuff that's underneath the block. Other frequencies are tuning us back to the truth of who we are and healing the physical body, the emotional body, the spiritual. And it all comes together. I have a, my sessions will last like 2 to 3 hours because I will not stop until a thread that we're working on is completed from beginning to end. And if there's a fear involved, we're going to work with the fear. If there's a cord or other dimensional energies, we're going to work with all aspects of it so they can walk out and feel free of that particular thread of consciousness, that particular core, or that particular whatever was going on in their life. And then I give them tools to move forward, energetic practices, spiritual practices actually, that their heart, asking their heart to do. And let me show you just one. Can I show you one spiritual practice? So I just asked them, put your hand on your heart, because that brings your attention from here to here. And I asked them just to drop in their heart and ask their heart, with their thought, ask their heart to honor themselves right where they are, no matter where they are. And then get out of the way and allow the heart to move into the frequency of honor. So just allow yourself to drop into your heart and just breathe. But you don't think anything. You just allow the heart, because everyone's heart knows how to do it. And just relax into that honor. You just let it go deep, 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 deep. Aha, yeah. Feels good. What it's doing does 4 things. I know when they're there. I could see when you guys got there, and I could feel it. But it does 4 things. It brings you into the moment, even now. Helps you know you're okay right now. It dissolves all judgment. If you're in a situation that's tense with someone, stop and honor yourself and honor the other. And then ask your heart what wants to be spoken. The heart is the instrument that we're moving forward in this world that's being created. And working with frequency. Frequency is the language of the universe. And then the 4th thing it does is it helps you know you're real. And I asked once, I said, what does real mean? I mean, how do I describe real? And put my fingers up and it said REAL, realigns energy as love. Brings people home. And so that's often how we start. So people are just participating in the frequencies, feeling them for themselves. And there are many. So.
Yeah, that was lovely. Thank you. It's nice to just drop in and be and ourselves in the space and take a minute.
You stay there a long time.
So you told us a little bit about, how this started, working at the bank and just, wow, just having this kind of epiphany that you don't know yourself, who are you, and all those things. But then, how did you actually learn to continue to go deep and do all these things? And I know you have some initials after your name, which is TBG. So I want to tell everybody a little bit about that and how you've deepened your practice as you've navigated where to take your practice.
I had a client fairly early on when I moved to Durango. I was in California. I moved to Durango pretty early. I'd been doing my practice in California. And he was a medical doctor. He was my client. And he was going to do a spiritual retreat. And he wanted me to speak. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to. And so he called me very close. He was going to print his program. And he called me and said, well, what's your title and what initials do you have after your name? I'm on the phone. I go, can you hold on a minute? And Spirit said TBG. I went back and I said TBG. He goes, what's that mean? Hold on. Taught by God. So that became my initials. If anyone wants initials, I've got initials. Because I have not taken classes or even read about this stuff. So what I do is I'm taught each time I would work on someone, I just surrender, totally surrender. And it moves, I get messages and I get the energy. And then I'm guided on how to work with them. So I've learned, and it keeps expanding. And I'm at a point where then it, like I said, shifted into frequencies where I'm not working on the table. And I work on people on the phone all the time. And just distance doesn't mean anything. And so it's the tones and the inflections, and then the practices and the teaching that go along with it. So that's my initials.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between doing individual work versus group work, and some of the differences. And because, you know, if you're doing you said when you work with somebody, sometimes the sessions are 2 or 3 hours and you follow a thread until it's completely finished. And I'm assuming that's like for an individual. So can you describe how a group session might be different?
A group session is totally guided too, based on who shows up. You know, so I've done them in person, but lately I've done them on Zoom some, and some are like frequency immersions where I have no clue what spirit has in mind, and people just come, they relax, and I go through for like an hour and do sounds, and if there's a little teaching that goes along with it, I share that. And that's what it is, and it impacts people. They're open to it, and it's impacting. And what I do, the other thing is Fred, my partner, my husband, it hasn't been that long. We've been together 25 years, but only married a few. We started working together and working with planet. And in doing that, we were told we actually worked with. It turned out on our own land. It was connected to Sirius star system, and so we were told to go to our land on that spot, and then we were shown how to open channel. We opened a portal up into the Sirius B, or the Sirius star system, and let that light come down through us and through our base of our spine and poof into the core of it. Into the planet, and then we just could feel it going down, down, down until it went into the core. And as it did that, it was just like this. And he and I, for years, have learned to become two as one. It's our. At one point, Spirit said, "How can there be two when there is only one?" Said, "Call yourself a unified field." But we still call it our two as one, because we come where our hearts come together in a harmonic. And then we do this, and then we would just let it expand. And then we started doing that around the world. Spirit would take us wherever we were traveling. We were taken to we get marks, X's on Google Earth, and we would go to those specific longitude and latitudes and do the same thing. So we were opening the planet. And then in Nepal, we actually, with a group, actually expanded that and shifted the frequency of the planet. And that was in 2013. And that was up the planet up to 5th dimension. Now it's grown more because there are many of us out there doing our work. Others, you know, so this is like a orchestrated dance that we're all doing because we each have a role in what's emerging. And so that's just something that Fred and I do. And I'm trying to think where I was going with it, but I got off on that. So if you want to ask another question, I'm going to get a drink.
Well, I think the original question was about, how groups differ from individual sessions, but I think you're painting a bigger picture, obviously, because if everything is a frequency and vibration, then obviously there's no limit to the ways that you can work with that, including whether it's in person, remotely, working with people, working with land, working with planetary systems. So
yeah, where I was going with that is that was when we do that light, it was called the living light. It's a divine, it is divine light. And so I do that in my sessions. Always when I'm done, I do that, and just it's this expansive light, and what I learned about it is what it feels like is what it felt like when my mother crossed over. I was in the room, and as she crossed, she went, "Ah, God's love is all the colors of the rainbow, colors we've never seen before." And she was just in awe, and I could feel that energy in her. And it was just like, oh my God. And that's what this light feels like. It's every color has a different purpose, a frequency, different frequencies. So I can feel in an individual's body where it's going and what it's doing. It's clearing maybe a throat chakra, or it could be clearing something with the heart. I feel what it's doing on an individual. With the group, it's working on everyone. And so I was asked to share this light and have the intention that it works on everyone around the world that's helping. So every time I do it. And then recently, for the last month, the assignment was to do it 2 to 3 hours a day for the world. So all of us are getting these assignments, and it's so beautiful because it's I never would have chosen doing this kind of work. But when it's in alignment, it feels right, it feels authentic, and it's good. And I just want to keep expanding it.
Thanks for sharing that little piece, because I think it's really interesting, because if we're in a mindset where we're thinking about me and my childhood and my parents and my wounds and how it's affecting me, in some ways we're still very much staying in a state of separation. So thanks for bringing that in, because it's like, yeah, there is no separation. And so doing this and just being immersed in the energy is something that's I think going to help us get to that next evolutionary level, where we really start to realize that we might be having a unique experience, but that we're not separate from that living light, as you call it.
It's life giving. It's life generating. Yeah.
And you're also a published author, not only in E.P.I.C that you've written some articles for, but in this lovely book. And can you tell us a little bit about how that came about? And you're working with other intuitives in there. And
I have been writing for 30 years, knowing that I would be writing a book or a series of books, and I was stuck because I didn't want people to open a book and read my words and go, I got it, I'm done. I want them to feel it. I wanted them to practice. I wanted them to learn, but to apply it. And how do I write words that help them do that, rather than just saying? And I was asked to write 30 pages about how the name of the book is Voices, Women Braving It All to Live Their Purpose. And so it's 11 women shared in creating this. It's a compilation book, by the way, which has been nominated, no, it was finalist in 2 international book awards in 2 categories: in the cover, which is pretty, and for anthology, which is good. So it's our stories, and every woman is different, and every woman had different lessons, and so it's really a great book. And what I'm finding is men really enjoy reading it too, because I mean, I had one come up and since I was crying reading your story. I'm like, really? Yeah, because it's vulnerable to share what you've been through and be honest about it, and to share. And it was, so I was actually taken to my computer and get back to your question, typed in what I was told to type on Google, and it took me to a retreat that was going to happen a week later. And it was a woman of writing, Rachel Galloway, and she was going to have this retreat for creating this book. This is what she does, and a writing retreat. And it was only a week later. And so I went, only way I could reach her was on her website to send a message. So I sent a message, and I waited a day, and I said, Spirit kept saying I have to be there. And it was kind of expensive, but Fred could feel it. And when you gotta go, you gotta go. Anyway, it was just drawing me. And the day before, she never got back to me. And the day before, I sent her a message and said, please call me now. The night before, yeah. And so that evening, she called me, and she apologized, and because she had been getting ready for her retreat, her retreat was full, and so it was out of town, so she was doing all that, and we talked. Excuse me. And she, there was a real instant resonance, and it was like I needed to go. It was going to start at 3 the next day in Las Vegas, not Las Vegas, Las Vegas in New Mexico. It was a 5-hour drive, and I threw stuff in the suitcase and drove over there and did it. And it was more about writing from the feeling tone and getting people to understand, you know, so what I did is I found my highs and lows where I was really in alignment and when I was out of alignment through my life, where I had setbacks or where I was really moving forward. And so I started with one place where I was moving forward, and then I skipped around my life. And once I was free to do that, I was able to write and create something that had the highlights, because in 30 pages you can't write your life. And I didn't want to just go first this and then that. So that's how I found her. And someone had just dropped out like that day. She calls me, and so she's got the story on the other end too.
So people listening to this, they can listen to it and say, well, she has a very mystical life with lots of synchronicities, and and that's not me. But the whole point is, if you are in alignment with the light, the energy, the flow of life, those synchronicities do happen. So can you talk a little bit about that, about how your work with people, will open that up so that, when they have it in a synchronicity, it becomes the norm instead of just, some kind of unusual coincidence in their life.
Practice, practice, practice. Because what builds trust is when you make a choice to move forward with the guidance. If you ignore guidance, it's gone. Okay? We're in a free will universe. The universe is going to come in, all the guides, the angelic realms, the masters, they're going to come in and help us. But they won't come in unless we ask, unless we make a choice. And so I learned a lot about choice. So I teach a lot about choice. And it's really, you can choose yes or no. There's no wrong answer, because you can have a new choice tomorrow. You see? You can get into it and it doesn't feel right. Pause. No, what choice do I have now? What choice do I have now? And what happens through using conscious choice and surrendering that choice, it's like, there's a whole process I teach, but it's by doing that, you're shifting from moving forward by judgment. Will I be okay? What will happen? Or I was hurt before, I might get hurt again. The past or the future dictating. So by using honor, coming back now and using that, and then you're prepared to make new choices. Choice becomes your navigational tool. It'll be your guide. It'll take you. And each time you do it, you build more trust. So it's not an instant thing. I mean, this happened 30 years ago to me. So, I mean, I work on myself every day. But it's not work, because it's my patterns, my practice, and my joy to learn more and be more and share more.
Let's talk a little bit more about the spiritual travel and retreats that you offer, and how do you know where to go, and what are some of the experiences that people have had? I know that it's been profound journeys for people, so give us some highlights in some of the travels you guys have taken people on these spiritual adventures to.
Each one of them has been guided. I mean, we just get a message, go to Peru and Bolivia. And so then we Fred and I go into prayer together in meditation to see what wants to emerge through that. And we most recently had the guidance to go to Malta and Sicily. We know nothing about Malta and Sicily. And so we're just in that process of understanding what wants to happen there. But taking Peru and Bolivia, for example, we do work with a man, Tim Ross, who has a company, a travel company, a spiritual travel company. And so we work through his company, which is great, because we do them every few years. We're not interested right now to be in this travel business totally alone, And so what we do is we work through him. He's got the local guides that give the local information and the teachings, and take us around to the sites, and we do the spiritual and the energetic frequency piece along with it. And we just get, usually it happens a year or two ahead of time. You're going to Malta and Sicily in 2022, October. You just say yes. We surrender it, say show us. And so we don't have the answers. There's no, and we'll take what he has done, what Finbar has done in the past, for example, for Peru and Bolivia, and go through it and feel into it. And do we want to do it in this order? Do we want to do all these sites? What, you know, is it longer, shorter? And we get it narrowed to what really wants to happen. And what we found out in Peru and Bolivia, there was one site that that most people go to in each country. And we asked the guy, you know, why would we have not been taken to those sites when he's been going to those sites? And I said, what's unique about them? He said, oh, they're both old military sites. And our intention for that trip was to support the people on the trip to increase their frequencies with each step on the journey. So it was about each one had something that would keep building and building and building and building on the journey. And so that's why some were out, some were changed around a little bit. And even on the journey, we sometimes move things around a little bit. So it's just listening and saying yes. And then what it is you end up living in the mystery. You end up being like a child on an adventure that you don't know what's around the next corner. You know, and so you just keep moving. So that's how those trips evolve. And we thought, oh, well, after Peru and Bolivia, you know, we probably won't do any more trips. It was about a month later, it said, nah, Malta and Sicily.
And I've had the privilege of being on 2 of those trips. So I can speak to the magic that happens, and the power of being in ceremony. And how much a group energy in ceremony raises your frequency and keeps things in that flow and in that mystery. So how is it that people can get a hold of you and find out more about your work and where they can get the book? You want to give us some of those details?
Sure. The website, the name of that came through for what we do is Soulular Clarity, not cellular, but it's SOULULAR, clarity.com. And you can also get there by myname.com, which is Karen Lovelien, LOVELIEN, Lien.com. And that's how you can reach us. And in that, we'll have more information about, it's not in there yet, Malta and Sicily. The book, Voices, Women Braving It All to Live Their Purpose, is available at Maria's in Durango. It's at Telluride, Avita Telluride Spa in Telluride, and on Amazon. And on Amazon you can get it on Kindle. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been well received, and I'm proud of it. And now I'm working on my own book, and it's coming together. So that'll be coming out sometime soon, which is more of the teaching and the weaving of stories.
Do you want to just offer another short practice as to something that maybe you and Fred do daily, or how to have people boost their intention or intuitiveness?
Yeah, let me see. Just a real quick thing on choice. There's 3 things when you make a choice. You've got to be willing, ready, and able. Okay? The willing is the yes. The ready is now. Because if you're not ready now, when? You're off into the future. So you've got to be ready now, and the able is to know you don't have to know how to do anything. And that's where the surrender comes in. You just surrender it and say, God, show me the way. So that's the powerful piece. I'll take you into surrender, which is think of something a choice that you would like to make, first. Okay. And if you're willing to choose it, just with your heart say yes. And the when, the now. Aha, there you go. Now, just give it to God. You're not giving up. You just ask your heart to move into surrender. And then just allow that frequency, a unique frequency, totally different than anything you felt. And give that choice now to Spirit. Just allowance, no doing, no thoughts. The heart knows how. Let it go deep. Yeah. There you go. You can stay with this. I was a puddle on the floor in my bedroom for weeks when I first learned how to surrender, because I was surrendering my entire life. I had no idea who am I, why am I here? So so that's my story. If I have one more thing to say, one more guidance, is to like open to be all that you are and simply be blessed. That easy. Choose to be big in the world, meaning richness, aliveness, all that you are, and be blessed.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. And it's a fascinating story. And you know, we know from experience, what your work is like, what your travel is like, and we just give it the absolute highest recommendation for people who are in that spot. Right now, I think there's a lot of people in that spot where they're craving more and they don't necessarily know what to do or where to go, and having that opening and beginning to understand who we are from a vibrational standpoint, a frequency standpoint. And what a great guide that you and Fred, what great guides you are in this world.
Thank you so much. Back at you, girls.
We could fast forward 5 or 10 years. What would you like to see as, your biggest accomplishment or contribution to the community or the world at large?
Probably this is a new teaching. I'll tell you what. In when I wrote this book, that my little one inside of me, my spirit, came to me and told me what my purpose is. And what she said was, "You are here for new knowledge to come in, living light to be known, and for love to be clear." So that's what I see as what I leave is that the teachings. It's new. This is different than I think what's out there. I don't read what's out there, but the body of work that I've learned over the 30 years. So it's coming together in this a new book that will. Book was probably sounded light. But yeah, it's coming together in a way that people will be able to use it and work with themselves and grow as well. So there you go.
Lori, you have more?
Speechless. I just want to thank you guys and all that you do. That through who you are, but also through E.P.I.C, through your individual work and practices, and and your connections in the, not only this community, but the larger community. So thank you so much. You add so much value.
Thank you. We appreciate it and appreciate all of the things that you and Fred do separately and together as well. So this has been great. Thanks for coming on. We'll look forward to seeing the new book. And again, if people would like to connect with Karen and Fred, it's soulularclarity.com or KarenLovelien.com. And that's SOULULAR clarity.com. And then visit us at epicmag.org. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.